Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jan de Man. I work for the Busworld Foundation. Very welcome at this closing session of a series of webinars on digital strategies made to make the survival of this sector during this crisis possible and even return stronger than before if possible. I'm going to explain you that this webinar will be held in two parts. First part will focus on the operational things we can do to survive and come back better. Second part will focus on how to pay for that during times in a crisis like this. We would like to make this webinar as interactive as possible. So your very active participation is really asked, and this can be done in different ways. My colleague Johannes is going to explain you how you can do this and how you can interfere, let your voice be heard. Johannes?
Thank you very much, Jan. Also a very warm welcome from my side to this webinar. I'll quickly share my screen. Okay, now you should be able to see it. I will just explain you what functions we will use in today's Zoom webinar. So the first one that you have at the bottom of your screen is the chat function. If you push this button, you will see this screen pop up at the right. Here you can choose to talk to all panelists and attendees at the same time. This function is only used to chat among attendees. If you have a real question you want to ask to one of the panelists or the experts, then you need to do that in the Q&A function. And the Q&A function is right next to the chat, which is here. So if you push this button, then this screen will appear. Here you can write down your question. Then you can also choose to do that anonymously if you don't want us to know who you are. Once you've done that, you just push the send button and then you will get an overview of all the questions asked. So not only your questions, but also those asked by other attendees. If you like a question of another attendee, please feel free to upvote his question. You can do that by pushing the like button right here. So this way we see which questions are most interesting and people want to hear an answer to the most. Okay, you also have a tab on the right side with your own question. Then during this webinar, we'll also have several polls. For the poll, you don't need to do anything. So this window will just pop up on your screen. And so what you need to do is, of course, answer the question and then at the end, push the submit button. Okay. We also have Spanish translation available during this webinar. You can activate this by pushing the interpretation button also in the Zoom toolbar. When you do this, you can just simply choose between the different channels. So if you'd like to have a Spanish, you push the Spanish channel. If you don't want to hear the English original audio in the background, then you can choose to mute that by pushing this button. Okay, so that's it for my part. We go back to Jan.
Thank you, Johannes. So please take the opportunity, ask your questions, give us your comments, and we'll make this a very interesting afternoon. Looking at the world today, we see that urban transport is about back at 100% of the offer, but only 50 to 60% occupancy. Today, we're going to focus more on coach, and there the situation is much worse, of course. Coach tourism is completely down, completely at zero. Intercity lines is the main focus point of this afternoon's discussion, and we'll see how it is there. But I hear percentages from 0 to 25%, not much more than this. We have had 3 webinars already focusing on how to survive this crisis and the importance of digital strategies in this. I'm very glad that we have been able to do this in a partnership with CheckMyBus. And it's the CEO of CheckMyBus, Marc Hofmann, who's going to make the keynote on the operational side of today's discussion. Later, we'll come to the second keynote on the financial part, which will be done by a representative of Deloitte. Marc, can I give you the floor?
Thank you, Jan. Thanks everyone for joining to the webinar. So I have actually the honor to set the ground for the discussion, which will happen later and which will hopefully be a very vivid discussion. A few words on CheckMyBus. For those that don't know us, we are leading global meta search for intercity bus and airport bus. Our mission is actually to make bus mobility as simple as possible. And for me, this has a lot to do with visibility. So making buses visible to a global audience for travel purposes, but also, of course, for general mobility purposes. We work with OTAs, we work with GDSs, but of course, we also work with partners directly. So a benefit of working with us directly is that a partner can control the brand. We don't see online distribution as an either or topic. So I think it makes sense to work with all different options which are available on the market and which are profitable to get an as much broad distribution as possible. For the reason actually with a good mix, I believe that surviving today is much easier and also growing tomorrow will be much easier, which is actually the topic of my presentation. Hannes, please, next slide. Survival, and I don't think I have to talk much about it. Jan said it already in the beginning. We are all struck by this crisis. So COVID has been hard for everyone and is still hard for everyone. This March, basically almost all traffic got down. Then we saw in summertime some recovery in Europe. We reported on that. So users were actually coming back relatively fast, which was positive. But then, of course, the second wave kicked in. And Europe got back into lockdowns, now coming out again, coming back again into lockdowns. And the likelihood that this will basically end before Christmas, I think, is very low. So probably next spring will be a good date. On the other side, in Latin America, things are getting better again. Hopefully that stays for a while. So traffic is ramping up there in different countries. So basically, it's a little bit like a roller coaster, one could say. Everyone knows that. Everyone is affected in this audience. What I also see and what I'm really, I could say, depressed about, that on a global level, we have seen very little government support on the bus industry, while in other areas of mobility, we have seen much more support with train companies as an example, or airlines as an example. And that, of course, doesn't make it easier for buses actually to get through this crisis. What we also see is a shift in behavior of users. I mean, we see the channel movement from offline to online. We see also different behavior patterns in general. While this move from offline to online is, of course, a challenge, on the other hand, it's also a big opportunity. And that brings me to the other side of it. And please see this only as a summary. I dive deeper into some of the other topics. I have never seen a moment where the bus business was starting to think so much about digitalization, about new projects that are possible. And you could say there is something good in this crisis. I think that's a difficult statement, I know that. But it forces everyone to focus, to rethink what we are doing and what we could do in the future. Users want more digital, and bus companies are actually opening them up on new possibilities. And that, again, will allow growth in the future. It's the fundament for growth in the future. Looking a little bit further down the road, once COVID is in a better situation, the mega trends, they will still remain valid. We still need to shift private mobility to shared mobility. So this will not go away. And the opportunity which we see happening in some areas is that crisis allows to rethink mobility. And that might be a sustainable benefit for the future. Hannes, please, next slide. As Jan said, we've gone through a very exciting series of webinars with very interesting speeches, and thanks to all speakers that have been there before presenting their studies, their best cases. Most of it were operators, some experts from the industry sharing their knowledge to the global audience. I just picked a few of these areas just from a bird's perspective, because these were actually solutions that were taken to survive today. These were solutions that are happening today and helping today. As an example, National Express had to restart the network, like many others, of course, too. And they said, come on, let's rebuild it smarter. Let's rebuild it more flexible. Let's rebuild it on technology and not as we have done it before. With Mobility RDO or Marino Bus, we had speakers who invested in customer understanding. Mobility RDO set up a complete digital transformation process through the whole company, trying to get a user-centric way of working on the customers and being successful. We saw with Grupo Flecha Maria, also from Mexico, how technologies can be used to make bus operations more efficient and also more profitable, even in these difficult times. And that is surely something that will stay after the crisis is over. We had speakers talking about dynamic pricing, which is a concept that is not widely used necessarily in the bus industry, but has reached a lot of interest and will surely be seen much more in the future. We got companies who actually took the crisis as an opportunity for new business, with Silo, for example, and we see this also with BusUp on worker transportation or employee transportation. Also, Flipco presented a concept from door to door, actually expanding the value chain, which was very interested. And the University of Milano presented a study on intermodal, which is surely a future possibility. We had partners there talking about digital service to handle COVID better, to be more flexible, and maybe to be a pay as you earn and not have high upfront investments. We had WU with Thunert and the Colorado Department of Transportation together with BAAV on that. And last but not least, we had a case where a company said, I'll invest in the e-commerce setup even in that time, and it pays off fast. So that's for today, but of course, it's also interesting to look for the future. Hannes, please. And if I look at the timeline, what we expect to happen, and of course, I'm sure in the discussion, there will be a lot of topics, discussions about what will be the truth. I think there's no one truth on that, but that's how we see actually the future to a certain extent. The lower part is actually a time range. So at the moment we are running in a COVID situation, that's no doubt. Once this is over, we will see definitely a consolidation on the marketplace. I know some people in the panel will say there will be no consolidation. Let's see. We will see a recession. This is very likely as the income, the world income is reduced. So that will have an effect. And once this period is over, we will again see an increasing need for sustainable mobility. These may, of course, overlap. In times of COVID, as I said, we see a massive push to digital, which really creates the fundament for new business models, which is going the direction of dynamic models, but which is also in the direction of being better connected to the touristic environment, but also between the modes. And if you look to the further future, a key solution is, of course, if you combine dynamic networks with autonomous. And I'll jump into more details on these items. Hannes, if you can, please. Give it the next slide. Thank you. I think visibility actually is a key. And in bus, we haven't been across the globe necessarily very good in being very visible. And I think this is something that we are all about to change, which will be to our benefit. If we look at flights, very likely that the point-to-point business in flights will become much more important than the hub business. So this means direct flights, point-to-point, will be key in the future after they are allowed again in a broad way and after people are traveling again. And that, of course, gives a big opportunity for buses and trains to hop in, because actually these direct flights need to be feeded. And in many cases, it's much more efficient actually to feed a direct flight with a bus, excuse me, or a train, and then fly directly to the destination. So these opportunities are being built up, and they provide a lot of growth market for the future. Individual tourism has been on the growth since more than a decade, but it will surely rise stronger after COVID, and it will become more spontaneous. And if you look at the situation today, there's so much bus which connects different destinations, but quite often it's not really visible. In a sense, it's the glue that binds tourism together, but it's the invisible glue. And I think there will be much more of a visible share actually that can happen by bus. So bringing people to the beautiful destinations, bringing people to their vacation rentals. All of these things are done already, but not necessarily easy to combine. They are in many cases happening as part of a packaged service. But with individual tourism and also more domestic tourism, these will become more and more important. Actually, looking on the right side, if you look at the major travel aggregators or travel channels, you see that bus is not really visible there. So if you look at hotel pages, they mainly have rental car as ancillary revenue. If you look at airports, taxi, Uber, or driver shuttle services are much more represented than buses are. However, in many cases, bus is the much better way actually to access the city from an airport. But it's not really connected because the connectors aren't there at all places or aren't used. If you look at the attractions business, which was growing post-COVID a lot, that often redirects to guided tours, but not necessarily to individual bus trips. And if you look at vacation rentals, it's again the rental car that is more dominant. But bus is most often the best choice. So if we jump into that topic, and we will, the more we digitize, the more possibility we have actually to sell our product on a broader range. Next, please. The question is it a bus or is it a seat? I mean, bus means, in a sense, omnibus, traveling together. It's a vessel for many people, but is it really a vessel or is it a need that is there? So if I look at intercity bus today, of course, it's a bus that operates and brings people from one city to another city. But looking at concepts, or an airport bus is actually the same, bring people from an airport to a city. But if I look at certain concepts presented before, like with door to gate or others, that is partly expanded to the last mile. So basically, it's not necessarily anymore a bus city to city, but city to city plus. If I look at from the other side, why shouldn't taxi or shuttle companies or maybe a Uber bring people into larger vehicles? So these modes are in a sense merging. If I look at the charter business, and we see that on the event space, there are more and more companies that are offering grouped semi-regular lines actually to larger events like football games or other areas, which were before done mainly by pure charter business. So the businesses are merging there. If I look at rideshare as an example, which I heard recently in a panel is less hit by the pandemic as bus, I don't know, on a broad scale. But of course, there is a way of feeding actually major routes of train and bus through more capillary systems like ride sharing for smaller entities. Or you can broker seats, and Johannes in the pre-discussion of the panel said, yeah, that's what I tried years before, actually, brokering seats from charter businesses and getting people onto that. But maybe the interfaces were not there, the time wasn't there. But all of these segments are merging more and more together with the question is actually what the user is needing. It's not necessarily the vessel that is important, but what the user needs. And I think that's what we should focus on. So if you would say the satisfying the user need can be very simple, and that's my next slide, please, Hannes. It's very easy. A user wants to get from A to B, yeah, and find the offer easily. The blue bar is actually how I see the bus is supporting that offer. So finding offer easily, not necessarily always. At the right time, yes, there's a high frequency in bus offers on many routes. Maybe not high enough, but it's high. The right price, definitely. Bus is super there. It's the cheapest mode of transportation. The right comfort, that's arguable depending on the bus, but I think a lot of bus offers are very comfortable and they have also gained a lot in credibility, also in markets where there was a stigma before. And if you look at book and travel without hassle, I think there had been improvement, but maybe that hasn't been the strength of the business looking back, but it could be. So it sounds all super easy, but is it really that easy? Are we really there where we should be? So I think working on that will help a lot. And bringing that case to an edge case to the future is actually on my next slide, Hannes, please. It is where we can look into a game changer, and that of course goes a little bit further in the future. But today the problem in many routes is, especially if we are talking near city routes, to really replace private car, is that it is impossible to put enough supply on a route to actually create the demand that people really drop their car in any cases. It's just too costly to set up a route between a small village and a city that operates every 10 minutes. So the only way how to solve this is actually with on-demand type of solutions. And there are running a lot of solutions already in the market. So that's nothing that is new. This is, for example, here, one example from Australia from 2018. So a lot of these solutions are coming up. and are growing. So that on-demand part. But now the second part is actually the size of the vehicle. In many cases, the size of the vehicle can't be 50 seats, but it has to be smaller. And if it's smaller, then you have to look at the costs of a driver. And if you look at the costs of a driver for a small vehicle, that gets a lot. And especially drivers can't wait in a depot for 5 hours until the peak hours of traffic are coming. So that actually is a big possibility for autonomous bus, where actually the cost of the driver is taken away. And if we look at this as something in the future, no, in Trondheim in Norway, this is on a test run operating since August this year in combination with on-demand business. So this is something that is happening now and which will happen on a broader scale, I think much earlier than autonomous car. So that's something in the far future. But if this happens, I think there's a lot more growth potential than we could imagine. Why bus is a solution in general? I think there's no mode of transportation that is shared and that can transport as many people, which is as flexible as bus. Routes can be changed, buses can be set up to new places. Like any destination almost can be reached by bus. This is a lot of opportunity. And if you're looking at the need of sustainable mobility, bus has the best levels of basically solving pollution. It's the best CO2 efficient mode of transportation, takes least space. As said, is very flexible, so it can solve mobility within the cities, but of course also between the cities. And it is the cheapest mode of transportation. So that should give us a lot of hope for the future. And if we go to my next slide, and why is it relevant with some of these things happening more in the future to start with it right now? Because now we are setting the fundament to actually touch this additional business. And those who are setting the fundament right now, even in difficult times, they will profit from that. And digitalization could come also at relatively low investment. There are pay-as-you-earn solutions. I think most people in this virtual room and in the panel later, they have offerings that can help directly to grow business. Behavior changes are happening now. The shift to online is happening now. So if you're the more you're on the online side, the more business you make. And then, of course, looking at the opportunity to redefine business. So some companies, they redefined their network completely. Shared mobility will grow in general, and it's an opportunity right now actually to see how you can redefine your business processes and how you can redefine your business restarting or actually operating on this very difficult market. And the last point here is partnership. And I said partnership versus consolidation. I think consolidation will happen, but of course, partnership is a big option actually to create some virtual consolidation, to bring things together smartly, to work on same models, on new business models, and be successful together. And I think that's the other possibility compared to consolidation. So let's go into partnership. Let's take this as an opportunity for actually what would be a very good potential of bus in the future. And that's my last slide, Hannes. Bus will see a massive growth. I'm very confident, even though we are in very, very difficult times, everyone here. The challenge, of course, is to create the right fundament in difficult times. But I'm very sure that many of us will be able to master this challenge. That's it. Thanks. You're muted.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes, this should be better. Thanks, Marc. Thanks for showing us the different phases of digitalization possible in bus and coach business. Thank you also for making clear that a crisis could be catalyzing this evolution as well. We're going to enter the panel discussion, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves. You will see a slide with some more information about them. They will end with a quote. We asked every panelist to send us a quote. This is very important because after this introduction, we're going to ask you all which of these quotes is the most correct, the most complete to your understanding. So listen very carefully. I'm going to start with Sanjeeb Ranjan, the Senior Director for redBus. Sanjeeb?
Hi, so I don't know how many of you are aware of redBus. redBus is started in India, and from last 4 or 5 years, we have been trying to reach to global audience, go to the different countries. Currently, we have presence in few countries in LATAM and Southeast Asia. And now we are trying to launch a global, which is redbus.com. So I'm heading that international business. The one thing which I think is very relevant from my point of view, that this COVID has forced lots of bus operators and this whole ecosystem to look at technology. And I'm very optimistic that this will help this whole ecosystem to grow exponentially. Probably next 10 years, the growth will surpass what you have seen in last 20, 25 years.
That's an optimistic message. Thank you, Sanjeeb. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, Sanjeeb is saying that the COVID situation here is forcing operators to adapt in technology, and this will bring a solution, a stronger position to come out of this. Let's go from India, in Bangalore, where you are, Sanjeeb, to Mexico. Yeah. Sebastian Gomez is a co-founder for Reservamos. Sebastian?
Hey everybody, I'm Sebastian. So I'm co-founder of Reservamos. We started back in 2013 out of MIT. And what we really believe is that through technology, there's an opportunity for bus companies to generate more revenue, lower cost, and really like unlock customer loyalty. So we do that across two business models. One, which is Reservamos SaaS, where we provide travel technology to the bus industry, mainly e-commerce and revenue management solutions. Marc made a point that there is no pricing in the industry today, and we're addressing that. Then on business unit number two, we have Reservamos.mx, which is an online travel agency. And what we think there is that the digitalization of the bus passenger is what's going to drive the growth of the overall travel and tourism vertical in general. So really, we think we're doing this because we think we can make bus travel sexy again. And my quote is that I think there's going to be titanic shifts in the market due to really fast innovation, driven by the digitalization of the industry and lower barriers of entry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. That was very clear. Mexico to Germany, Johannes from Distribution. Johannes, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes. Yeah, okay. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Johannes, co-founder and CBO of Distribution Technologies here. Distribution Technologies is a technology provider for ground transportation or bus operators. As Marc already stated in his keynote, like bus was or is still very unrepresented in the global sales channels, OTAs, mobility platforms, and so on. Yeah, they focus on other verticals. What we are doing, we are connecting bus operators with, you see it, 150 roundabout global travel retailers across the world, right? OTAs, mobility platforms, airlines, wherever somebody wants to be present selling their tickets, we are connecting them there, right? And basically take care of all the hustle for that, right? With one API connection or another connection, you can basically have all the contractual, commercial, technical, and settlement issues solved, and you can just trade no matter where you want. Yeah, I'm not dropping any names now, but whatever big OTA might come now to your mind, there is a good chance we are connected and bringing bus operators there. Yeah, and I think this is also very fundamental part of the recovery, which also Marc said already. Yeah, we believe that to survive in the post-COVID world, you have to really play your online sales smartly, be visible, right? You have to partner, or you will get consolidated.
Thanks so much, Johannes. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, we'll show you all the quotes in a minute. Make it easy for you to make your choice. Marc, I come back to you. Just mention your quote, please. What is the key of your message here?
I think that bus is actually one key part to solve the problems that we have with congestion and pollution. And I think for that, it has a very bright future, and we have to start now to actually do this.
Okay. Thank you so much. This is another accent we didn't hear before. The link to climate change, traffic jams, etc. Marko, Javornik, great to see you again. You were the guest at different Busworld academies. Can you introduce yourself for the people? Thank you.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Marko Javornik. I'm general manager of Voyego. So they say it takes 66 days on average to change behavior. We are now 9 months basically working online, having webinars online, eating online, shopping online, and so forth. And it's fair to say there will be 3 more months for most of us. So expect that after COVID-19, there's a massive acceleration of digitalization. And in mobility, this concept is known as mobility as a service. We know what needs to be done. There are 5 bullets below, but not many traditional companies are able to be successful in this. It is now a good opportunity to step back, look at various industries and recognize why is this so difficult and what is the right way to do it. So my quote is, MAS is the new vision, and the proper digitalization of infrastructure is the path to success.
Thank you so much, Marko. Digitalization as the only or the best way to go to MAS. Thanks so much. My colleague Inge is representing the Belgian Federation for Bus and Coach Operators, and we started our own initiative. Inge, can you introduce us?
Yes, of course. You might know me from Busworld mainly, but Busworld is also organized by the federation called BAAV. So I will be representing BAAV today, and specifically a project that we have been doing for the members here in Belgium, together with another federation in Belgium. So BAAV is a Flemish federation. We have 148 operator members here. And we started a project called busfan.be. Hannes, you can proceed a little. So this is my quote. I will not say too much about it because Jan will give us the time to explain later. But I also do believe that digital is here to stay and that small companies cannot survive by themselves. They have to work together. They have to partner. Hannes, can you? And that's why we came up with this project called busfan.be. This is a platform where we group all coach holiday offers in Belgium together in one platform. So we actually can compete with the big tour operators. This means that it's a non-commercial platform, of course, because it's owned by the federation. And there is no advertising possibilities. Everybody has the same chance of being visible. Hannes, can you? And also all these smaller companies together, they act like one big school of fishes. So we are big enough like this to compete with the big tour operators. And I think it's very important that the federations help their members, the small companies especially, to do this kind of activity together to be big enough and important enough to survive on the internet.
Thank you so much, Inge. Thanks for introducing yourselves, everybody. I'm going to pick some of the things you said to open the debate. It is clear to all of you that the way to get out of this crisis, and especially the way to come out stronger, is via digital tools. And the reason for that is because the last couple of months we've been living online. Our life was nowhere else than online. Is this an evolution that is here to stay? I mean, especially in bus and coach transport. What parts of this digital revolution, I may say, is going to stay? What parts are going probably not survive the crisis? Maybe let's go to Sanjeeb. In redBus, what are your conclusions? What do you see that the bus and coach operators working with redBus, what are they doing, and why do you think they will stay working in this way?
So one a good opportunity which we had been trying in the past to push more and more data to bus operators. And I don't want to put that this in their head that it was not happening. But what has happened now, if we share the data, let's say we have access to data from Google, we have access to data from our own websites, like let's say which route has more demand, where services should be higher, where you can put new service, where pricing can be different. I think this is going to stay now. Earlier, it was more difficult for us to, I'm talking not only from India, even Malaysia, even in Indonesia. And some of these countries, especially in Asia, we don't see this dynamic pricing. See, this is very simple word that, the word which we say dynamic pricing. It doesn't mean that you just increase price by 20%. So we used to see that the bus operators will, when you say, hey, your load factor is high, why not you increase the price? So without any scientific application, they will just increase the price.
Yep.
However, we launched our product dynamic pricing long back, but the adoptions were lower. But I think that this whole COVID scenario has given enough time for the bus operators to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
The second,
okay.
I think route planning, which will definitely, which was very common in the very, if you are a very large operator, but was not very common when you are mid-size operator or a small operator. A timing and route planning, this is going to stay.
Okay, thank you so much. You're immediately referring to analyzing data and coming to the possibilities for dynamic pricing, even dynamic route planning. I'm going to Mexico, to Sebastian. Do you see the same?
Yeah, and the point that I wanted to make is that I think we have had a massive kind of amount of information coming from all the pandemic regarding digitalization. And we have been at Reservamos, like enticing and pushing digitalization from 7 years back in the industry. And the big reason of why we push that thesis is, one, we have data that selling a ticket online cost 50% less than selling that ticket in the terminal. And so that is a direct impact to your business. Then number two, if more of your customers get online, you have more data, better data. And with that data, you can unlock revenue opportunities. And so I really think that is the main driver of why to go digital in the industry. And of course, COVID has just accelerated this trend.
Okay, so I'm coming to you, Marc. So what you're saying, Sebastian, is that digitalizing your offer, your sales structure, etc., is working price reductive, right? It's decreasing the price of your operations itself. Let me stay for 10 seconds more with the two of you. You are both running a let's say a sales platform and an ATO. What did this crisis, let's say since March, what did it do for the number of bus or coach operators working with your platform? Has it? I'm not talking about the turnover. I'm talking about the number of companies working via you. Was there an evolution since March? Sanjeeb first.
So see, we are still waiting for all the operators to come back to the platform and start selling. But
okay.
So then only we can recognize that there are. But however, surprisingly, there are a few new operators who have come up, especially in Malaysia.
See, what was the situation in Mexico, Sebastian? Did people get away from the platform saying that there is no business, so there's no point being there, or was it just a reflection of this is the time to find new sales structures via your platform?
No, and look, we have seen a surge of new customers coming into the platform and coming as customers of technology adoption. And the reason for that is that in Latin America in general, bus companies relied on hard assets like terminals and infrastructure to be able to remain competitive and attract demand. And that is no longer true in this environment. Right now, any company that has a good service with a digital phone and an online strategy can go and attract customers. And so I'll share a few facts that we have from our platform that we see. So among the top 3 routes in Mexico, we have 2 companies that came in as providers in this during the pandemic. And to give you a sense, like these companies have gone from 0 to 11% of consumer intent in these routes. And that is massive change. And that's really because they're providing a more digital service, they're addressing the customer needs. And that is why I believe that the industry is being reset and there's going to be a transformation of the quotas of participation in the industry.
I understand. Marc, you wanted to interfere?
Yeah, just quickly connected actually to what Sebastian said. We saw, especially in Latin America, that the curves of user demand and also transactions partly are even higher year on year than they were in 2019. And if you talk with operators, that doesn't reflect really their reality by 100% at least. The crisis has been a little bit weaker in some places than it has been in Europe or the United States. And that is pretty clear, a shift that actually happened from the user side, from a terminal-driven business or to an online-driven business, because probably people don't want to be at terminals anymore, especially at that point of time. So there has been a big shift. And if I look at our partners, we haven't lost partners. People didn't go out the platform because there's no need, because if actually we don't send a user, no one has to pay. So this is a 100% performance driven business. So why should someone get out? Of course, we acquired also new customers, new partners, but we saw also in that time quite a few companies said, why should I come on the platform now? Let me wait until this crisis is over. And I asked myself, of course, why would you want to wait? Especially in times where you have difficulties to acquire customers because maybe they're a little bit more reluctant to jump on your bus. Why would you actually miss out a distribution channel that you only have to pay if you're successful? And we saw that quite often, that people just said, okay, let me wait. Let's see what happens. And then let's make decisions again after the crisis.
Okay, we see that digitalization is kind of a not new marketing tool, but trying to enlarge your turnover, etc., reaching more clients. What is for a coach operator necessary to have in order to enter this phase? And there's 2 phases. Actually, I can go digital just by myself, improve my website, improve my e-commerce, etc. And then in the second phase, doing it in a joint way, together on a platform with others. Johannes, I'm coming to you. What is necessary in terms of investment, in terms of operations, for a coach or bus company to go digital in a smart way, as you say it in your quote? We cannot hear you, Johannes.
Sorry, yeah. I think the initial investment that you have to do, I think it's actually quite small, right? There is a lot of software as a service solutions out there which provide you already digital backbone for your inventory management, right? There is all kinds of ways connecting to the customers already, right? And this is also what we are really seeing right now in the market, which are what the customers are coming for right now. As the crisis truly have been a proper reset of the market, the demand, which grew over years, right, suddenly collapsed within days, right? Networks which have been built over a long period of time, were suspended now or completely gone, And now we see such a fast and shifting behavior, right? That is a very delicate continuum right now, And to be able to move in there, you need this digital backbone, right? Your IMS, your software to access digital channels. And there is, I think, is really what we see right now for our customers when they come to us is key, right? To get as much exposure as possible, right? Because you have a limited network and you need to get the few buses full, right? So you need to push your inventory everywhere, You really need exposure. The other one is you need to also, when suddenly you see it every day, right? As soon as the COVID numbers go down, the market is opening up, the demand rises within days, right? So often our customers struggling with rebuilding the networks right now, So I think what we currently are seeing is that they are not necessarily building these networks themselves, but they're partnering with others, right? Connecting, for example, our API, being able to sell other bus operators, to feed their hubs, right? To do some other routes they haven't tried before, not to overextend on the fixed cost, right? I think this is really key on that. Yeah, you need to balance in the new market dynamics, right? The new reality that we are in without overextending on the fixed cost side.
Okay, thank you so much. Coming to Marko, and then to Inge again. Marko, to make the step, is that really a first phase to go individual in your digitalization strategy before you enter a platform or a group, or can you just go from operations as usual? Maybe you have a website, but that's it. Entering a platform, what is the right strategy there? Is there steps to be respected, or can we just go?
Yeah, excellent question. So first, I would say let's look from the big picture. So to the question, is the digitalization here to stay or not? So I would suggest everybody to look at digitalization as industrial revolution. It is here to stay, so it's not going away. Once you invent a wheel, you don't go back and forget about it. So this is how I would suggest to look at it. We are now talking about digital necessity. So it is everybody must start the digitalization process. And now what we are seeing is that with traditional companies like bus operators, they will need to realize that the business that they were doing for 2-3 decades is radically different than the new business, the new digital platform economy. Now, how do you then go about? Well, you need to build yourself the right foundation so that you can start with the ecosystem play, plugging into the platforms and so forth. And here, one of the key things will be to understand that there must be a good, solid data strategy. And here, I would advise everybody to think about digital twins, about the key entities, like obviously the key entity will be your passengers, your consumers. Another will be the buses, the seats on the bus. Another one will be the drivers and so forth. So you will need to create an environment in which you can build the digital platform economy and decouple it from your traditional business, which will be moving in a mechanical world. So you will still be moving seats from city to city. This is still your core business and your strength, but you need to decouple the digital layers of your business and enable much, much faster innovation and the agility that comes with this.
Okay, you're opening the debate from the purely marketing side to managing the whole company. Indeed. Sanjeeb, before I come to you, let me go to Inge. We've been talking about mostly intercity bus trips. What about coach tourism and package deals, Inge? What you're doing with Busfan, how did it influence the Belgian coach operators? How successful are you, and what is the difficulties you meet?
Well, of course, the individual websites still are very important because we are not a booking platform. We are just a platform that gives distribution. When people want to know more about a specific trip, they are redirected to the website of the operator. So of course, the operator still has his own identity, his own brand, his own responsibility for his digital part of closing the sales. But we have seen in the beginning, the members were very skeptical, and it was something that the federations decided to do without actually the help of the members. So we are still doing this. We are adding all the trips and the holidays ourselves to the database of the website. And that's really necessary because a lot of members did not really see the necessity of being digital and online. But nowadays, they are really convinced about the force of Busfan. They really see that it's bringing them business and new business. And actually, for COVID-19, the relaunch after COVID-19, the main focus will be Busfan. We are promoting the whole sector through Busfan. We are doing the promotion digitally, mainly via Facebook and Google, and it just works. Every year it's getting better, and we see very positive results.
Thank you so much. I promised you a last 30 seconds before we go to the first poll. Sanjeeb, you wanted to respond to something?
Yeah, I was just coming back to your cost. See, the digitization cost is free from last 3-4 years. It is all about the switching cost of a bus operator, the mindset and the operational cost which is involved. So earlier, the digitization is available. They were not willing to put time or effort behind it. So that's what I wanted to.
Okay.
There's no switching cost involved.
Mark, can you allow me to go to the poll first? We'll take it back from where Sanjeeb ended this. Ladies and gentlemen, you've had an introduction with all the speakers. Hannes, can you show us the quotes that they've given? We'd like to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, and don't forget to scroll down so you see them all. We'll give you like 30 seconds, just make your choice. Which quote is, to your opinion, the most correct? I see that there is some similarities in the quotes. I think everybody is agreeing that digitalization is important. Johannes was saying that, yes, but it's absolutely necessary that you play it smart. And it will be necessary together with playing your online sales smartly to partner or to consolidate, right? The big changes in the market caused by innovation are driven by digitalization, as Sebastian said, so there's no way to leave it just behind you. Marko focused on MaaS, which is a concept that is getting into the sector right now, but the way to get there is to get connected and to have the right infrastructure and the path there. I think it was Sanjeeb who said, you have no choice. COVID is forcing you to adopt technology. Marc made the link to climate change and in his keynote speech as well, and to the economic crisis that might be following this. So yes, we all consider bus and coach as a very important part of the solution towards the effects of transport and climate change. But it will be absolutely necessary to work via digital tools there. I forgot one, I'm too late for one other quote. Hannes, can you show us the results? Which speaker will? I see that the first speaker, indeed, Johannes, I think 23% of all attendees, and we're over 120 right now, is saying that yes, we have to play our online sales smartly, and partner and consolidation will be absolutely necessary. And I also see that the other quotes that are quite close to what you said, Johannes, are also making a score over 21. What is a strange thing, Marko, is that only 9% of the people make the connection to MaaS, while this is, as I thought, the real context that we are talking into. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your participation. I promise to get back to what you said before, to what Sanjeeb said, and Marc wanted to pick in. Just this direction now, as Inge said, here in Belgium, it's the federation putting the offer of the coach operators on one website and trying to promote the bus and coach offer as one to the public. How come it is that difficult to convince coach operators, first of all, to go digital, and secondly, to go digital, let's say, in a kind of a communicative way? Marc, can I come to you with this one?
Yeah, quickly. I'll respond to that in a second. I think number one, MaaS, that's probably a reason why that was relatively low, because it's a concept which I think is definitely the future, but it's a concept that is a little bit further down the road because it requires a lot of connection on the contractual and digital side. So that might be difficult. And what I found interesting with Marko, and also I think Sebastian said it, on the data side, is that you have to work with data. And I think in this room, there's so much data And I think it happens rarely that actually operators are coming and ask us about data. Of course, we cannot give all data to other companies, like especially when it comes to competition data or prices, but we can actually help with data and information about routes, about frequency, about a lot of things, but we are rarely asked about it. Some do, which is surely helpful, but a few people do. And sometimes it's just, asking and seeing, reaching out to the environment. And maybe that is also one thing, what you said, Jan, that sometimes bus companies, and it's not all bus companies, but some bus companies are a little bit reluctant to actually jump on platforms, jump on distribution channels, because I think a lot of the business initially comes about being super good on operations, making sure that the buses are operating in a perfect manner, that when it comes to charter, that someone said from a charter business to me, Mark, you have to make sure that if in the Nordics somewhere with a lot of snow, a bus is basically on the road, you have to make sure that people are not freezing to death because they overnight on the road. And I think if a lot of that focus is actually operation, and then a lot of new insights and digital stuff is coming in, but you don't have the resources, especially in a smaller company, built up that actually are dealing with that. There might be also fear, or there might be something which prevents you from trying out something. A lot of these things you can just try out with very limited risk and very limited costs, but people are not necessarily doing it. So I think that's probably something, tried out, especially for smaller companies. You can't lose much, probably nothing.
We come to that. We come to the difference in this entry for bigger companies and smaller companies. Sebastian, you reacted. Do you see in the Reservamos any reluctancy of operators to join you?
No, and I think no, definitely not. I think people, at least the CEOs and the C-suite people that we speak in the industry in Latam, are already seeing the digital trend there. And we don't see it not only in the transportation industry, for example, it's been happening with the fintech industry. So I think it's more prevalent in the society right now. But I was going to go to Mark's point. And I think there's something that us as software companies have ingrained in our kind of mode of operation. And that is that of rapid innovation. And rapid innovation happens like every day for us. For example, for a bus partner who adopts our SaaS technology, we do approximately 10 or 15 releases per month. And that is like, I think it's independent of the tactic, whether it's what Inge was proposing. I think the industry needs to get into a mentality of testing out many ways as possible, because our biggest objective right now is to really engage with the customer. Yes. And that's really what we believe. That's what's going to make a company persist and have longevity.
Yep. Yeah. It's like test whatever is possible and come to your own conclusions. Johannes, do you see this as well? Is distribution approached by bus and coach operators saying, let me test, show me what's on the market, give me some demos, let me test it? How does it work?
Yeah, definitely. I think we see while there is less demand on the customer side, like on the trading side, there is way more demand from the operators, and people want to start selling bus, right? We always say to them, like, it might be the worst time to be in bus right now, but actually it's the best time to start this, right? Because it's now again like a level playing field. But I would also say, like, still there is, I mean, even though the demand is much higher these days, way higher on different levels, like I said, not only being distributed, but also getting other operators content to sell this in their own networks, there is still hesitance, right? I mean, it's not like everybody is now super open suddenly. I very much share the view of Marc before. There is still a lot of education you have to do, right? And I think this is also very normal, right? Because as Marc said, yeah, most operators come from operating, right? They have a totally different other focus points, right? And now stepping out of your comfort zone, going digital, giving your data, your bookability to other people, right? I mean, that's not an easy step, yeah? And I think it's why I also love this academy so much, is like this educational piece is so much needed, right? Because actually it is the only way out of that, right? And I think it's just about like finding a good way to communicating this. Yeah. So for us, it's basically, as you said, right? Demand, as I said, it's higher, the demand is higher, but it's still an educational process to really see and how we can turn this thing together around.
I see. Yes, thank you indeed. Is it really translating that the easier I can find a ticket, the easier I will come to bus and coach offers? Is it as simple as that?
I mean, that's not all, right? But it's
for the passenger.
And that's not everything, right? There needs to be many things, right? Prices, frequencies, the quality of the service, etc. We all know it, right? But I think the accessibility is key, right? Without the access, nothing else matters. You can have the best pricing in the world. You have the most luxurious buses. If the customers don't find that, it's all nothing.
Okay. Is marketing really the main playing field for digitalization in bus companies? I'm going to Sanjeeb maybe.
Sorry, when you say marketing, what do you mean by acquiring?
I mean finding more clients.
Okay, so see, finding more clients have never been a difficult part, because bus industry is not as fragmented as you find hotel industry, right? So in any country, when we enter, let's say take an example, even a country like India, how many bus operators will be there? Probably 10,000. But if you put, let's say, people on the ground, but let's say if you go to smaller countries like Malaysia or even Indonesia, will have 500 good operators and then probably 1,000 operators. So I will take a very good example, Indonesia, which is, you will be surprised that hardly 5 or 10%, not more than 10% bus operators are digitized. And we have been putting our effort for last 3-4 years to make them digital, bring them online. So that was never a part of this, right? And even that's where I said that when COVID hits, right? Before, what was happening, that every bus operator wanted to go digital. It was never, I hardly met someone who said, no, I'm not interested.
Yeah, okay.
But what used to happen then, when you say that, okay, now is the time for you to go live, and then it will take 6 months, 1 year, even sometimes 2-3 years, and you leave the hope that this particular company will ever go digital. Because what will happen? Sometimes owners will be too busy, like Marc or even or Johannes was saying, in operational stuff. And it's a human nature, right? When we, you know, when we are busy, we don't get time to think about anything else. So they were always in, okay, I'm not getting time. My manager will do it. I will hire someone who understands technology, who will do it. Now what has happened, that they are getting time, and this technology or our numbers, or we were always there. But now they are asking us that, hey, you had presented.
I understand.
I'm interested in.
Yes, please continue.
One aspect which I'm coming to what Johannes said, that the distribution, right? When we entered in Singapore or Malaysia, and when we were meeting them, and we were saying that we have done quite a good work in India, and probably we wanted to, use, and because we have been always a B2C front company, so we know how to generate demand. So one question will always come in their mind, that what is demand you will bring? I have my loyal set of customers. So we had to show them that, hey, it's not about you're competing only with the, your own set of bus operators. Sometimes you're competing with airline as well. You're competing with the self-driven vehicle. So I will take a very good example. Singapore to Kuala Lumpur is 4-hour journey by bus. Actually, it's 3.5 hours. If you take a flight, it becomes actually 5 hours, because you have to go 1.5 hours. And we had to show them that, hey, as a redBus, I'm bidding against Tiger Airlines, I'm bidding against AirAsia. I can bring value, and that's how it took longer time to bring them, on our that. Because if you are not distributing your inventory, then you are just competing among yourselves, and you are happy enough that I'm not giving commission to the OTA, and that's what they were stopping them, because they were thinking that, hey, this set of customers which are coming to me today, will come through this guy or this company, and I will end up paying probably 10% or whatever percentage commission to this particular company. So I think those were the hurdles which we.
Thank you, Sanjeeb. Let me come to the consequences, to the evolutions we're going to. Will this digitalization process facilitate the multimodality of transport? Will it influence as the mass concept? Marko, I'm coming back to you. As the mass concept is saying, buy one ticket and go from your door to the place where you want to be. Is digitalization helping in this? I understand that we're not there. It's a concept that might be a bit far away, as Mark said, but what is the timing? When will we get there? And what do coach operators have to do to make the position of bus and coach in this mass landscape as strong as possible, to keep their position?
Yeah, so digitalization changes things. So the customer goes into the center, and this is how the mobility should be looked like. So user-centric. This is what happens. Now, it will take a decade, maybe 2 decades, to really this dream come true. But it is very important to understand that as we are going into the digital world, you do need to steer your activities with a very, very strong vision. Let's learn from the best. You know, Elon Musk, 2004, when he started working on a roadster, the dream was not to do a roadster and then Model S and then Model X. The dream was to make electric car that will become pervasive. And this dream took 15 years to do in a very agile way. So today Tesla is doing like 28 updates per week. So they're very agile, iterative, and so forth. But you can only be successful in this very, very agile approach if you have incredibly strong vision and if you see 10 years, 20 years ahead what's happening. That is why I believe it does make sense to look at the mass, even though we all know it will not be next year, it will not be the year after. This is a 10, 20-year vision. But if you want to be successful in this, you need to have a very strong vision that drives organization. And then you need to think, where is my role in this? And you need to be humble and understand maybe you will not do everything yourself. Maybe you will need to partner with many, many companies around, but you can carve out the market for yourself. I think this is the right approach.
I understand, Marko. What's the difference in realizing this goal between a big company and a small company? Some of our members are thinking, I have to find a driver for this trip tomorrow there, and they have no overhead structure. And 80% of the bus operators worldwide is small and middle-sized enterprises. How are we going to get this group into this evolution? Anybody? Sanjeeb, then Mark, yeah? Sanjeeb, go on.
I have very good example from India, right? So there were a couple of routes. I think some of, especially Jan, you might be aware that there's a Bangalore and there is a Chennai, which is very good route for bus operators. And there were very large players. But over the years, what we realized that there were very small players with 1 or 2 services. And they got rid of whole this having branch, having agents, and they went ahead and fully relied on the online players. And because their costs were very low, no overhead, and they started, grabbing the market share for the larger players. So there are good examples. Even I think there's one operator called Orange Travels. 6-7 years back, it was a very small, just in taxi. Now in 6 years, they charge premium 30% more than any large operator on the same routes, but still they have 90 to 100% load factor. So it's never about, these small operators might be small today, but I don't treat them as small because it's always, you should look at some of them as a large potential. Not doing the way traditionally it was done, and they're grabbing market share.
I understand what you're saying. Mark, you wanted to react on this?
Yeah, very quickly. I think, of course, small companies have a certain lack of resources to basically get human resources. Yeah. But I think in many ways, human resources are not necessarily tied. A lot is not tied to the execution, but a lot is tied to decisions and also to, let's say, being afraid of making a wrong strategical decisions. Quite often people are talking, yeah, should we work with you or should we work with someone else? The question is not necessarily that. The question is basically, why not working with all channels where you don't have integration costs on that side? Try it out, basically see what the return is, and switch the importance of the channels which give less return and increase the importance of the channels which give more return. And a lot of discussions were going in that range. Should I make a strategic decision going left or should I go right? It's not necessarily about that. It's really, especially if you're a small company, behave like a startup, try things out, go left, go right, try Johannes, try Sebastian, try Sanjeeb, try Marc, try whoever, and basically maybe work with all of them and see that basically your distribution split is as good as possible, and mix that up with Facebook and mix that up with direct partnerships with the hotels around, where someone gives you a free tracking software to do this because it doesn't cost anything, and they even help you to embed it, and roll up that whole part with very limited costs. But just do it. I think that's probably key, and that also works for small companies, and it does work for startups.
I understand. Sebastian.
I think one point, I actually think that the smaller companies have an edge in this type of market. And my reason to believe that is that, one, the companies that are smaller are more nimble. They are more accustomed to operating with more constraints. And this is a market full of constraints. And actually, like in a smaller company, the management is in the front line addressing the consumer needs, while incumbent players are actually strategizing on how to prepare to address the situation. And that's really what I think, that there's a tremendous opportunity for small companies to capture market share in this environment. Like as I speak, for example, to CTOs and CEOs of the company, like I asked them, okay, what is the major like threat that you have right now? And it's really the speed of change. Yep. And that's what their incumbents are facing today in their organizations. And that's what you need to correct.
So is outsourcing the management of the speed of change the solution for some coach companies?
And sorry, I'll just continue 1 second on that point. I don't think so. I think one of the biggest challenges of adopting a digital model is not on the marketing tactic, it's on the talent. And I think the talent has to have a combination of an internal strategy. You need to build up your digital teams, but you also need to rely on partners who are savvy to be able to shorten that curve of like that lesson curve that you need to take to be able to operate faster in a digital market.
I understand. Yes. There's one more thing. If I would be a coach operator, I completely follow what you're saying, Sebastian. It is the speed of change that is hard for me to manage. But what I see with the members we have in our federation, and what I hear in the Busworld Academy activities all over the world, is that there is also some kind of fear of losing control over your own sales. Right? I'm giving my sales to somebody else, and that scares me. How does that influence your businesses? Maybe Johannes?
Yeah.
Is that something you recognize?
110%, right? Before coming to that, by the way, I would just want to make one more point on this big and small discussion. I think it's truly not about that. It's only about the mindset, right?
Yeah,
if you have you can have the biggest rail operator out there, right? If you have the right people at the right place with the right mindset, they will get things done. They will be agile, they will be nimble, they will be, no matter how the world looks inside this operator, they will find their ways, right? They will find their ways in the market. And the same thing could go for a small one. Yeah, if they are stuck with their beliefs, right? It doesn't matter how small you are, you will still not turn the ship around. So this is one thing on that. On the other one,
okay,
that's what we see, right? I'm not saying that's reality, just what we see in the market, right? Sorry, what was the other one again?
So the other one was if I source out, if I go and work with a platform like Reservamos or like redBus or CheckMyBus. do I lose the control over my sales?
I think you're gaining the control over yourself, over your sales, right? I mean, otherwise you're giving them to your competitors. Yeah. If you don't play the game, the others will play it for you. We have seen this now so many times in Europe, actually, where really big like bus operators have taken the control, right? And if you're not out there doing it yourself, you will be losing your customers, right? Waiting is the worst thing you can ever do in this market. Yeah.
I agree.
So I like, look, of course, these are important topics. Customer data is super important, right? You have to choose your IT or your partners very wisely, right? That you have customer ownership, 100% agree, right? These things you really must tick the boxes before you make a decision. But as Marc said, you can try different things, right? Just trial and error. See how the market behaves to the different measures you are taking. This is the best thing you can do, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Customer ownership, as you mentioned, Johannes, also refers to getting my brand in the picture, not the brand of my sales platform, but my own brand. We see FlixBus being very strong in this in this concept. If working with a platform and then with different strategies, how do I keep my brand visible to my clients? How do I keep my customer? Marc, maybe?
Well, I mean, of course, you could work with CheckMyBus, and I have to say that right now, because when you're working direct with us, users are redirected to the operator's page, and then you have full control of the customer. So I think that's probably a very easy way of making sure that you have basically all touch points of the customer, and you basically are able to grab the customer and make it loyal. Now, would I say that in that sense, it doesn't make to work with OTAs, or that's a competing model? I wouldn't say so. I would say basically there are in the holistic picture of all channels, you should basically work with these different channels because all of them have a benefit. And OTA, from my point of view, brings you a lot of direct business where you don't have a lot of hassle. We, for example, bring the direct customer control. I think distribution distributes basically your inventory to a broader scale. So there are a lot of these different solutions which all have their different strengths. And the question for me is not either or. I mean, just see where you get most out of it in all respects. I think in general, controlling the own brand, if you want to manage and grow your business, is absolutely key. There are a lot of companies that have been very, very successful without mentioning any specific names right now or colors. It actually, they really focus that they don't lose many touch points to any other areas where they are risking to lose control of their brands. Okay. There have also been other companies who have been super successful, not focusing so much on their brand, but then they have a different scheme. So then they are more on, let's say, the operational side, so the hardware side, and not really on the distribution side. So I think if you want to win, you have to play these different areas, your brand, but also your distribution.
Fill me in, Marc, very shortly. If I'm a passenger, I am looking for a ticket from Berlin to Brussels. I'll get all information about time schedules, including price on CheckMyBus.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Price, and if I want to buy the ticket, you will refer me to the website of the operator. Yeah. Okay. How is that different in redBus? And I'm coming to you after that, Sebastian. How is that different in redBus, Sanjeeb?
So it's for us, it is booking happens on our platform, and that's how it is different. I think in case of CheckMyBus, the traffic goes to, like he was explaining, it goes to the bus operator websites. However, coming back to the question, right? I think we missed one part in that when we say that, bus for operators, they need control. See, we need to divide this into two parts. One is, while you are selling, whom do you want to sell? So I will give you one example. Let's say redBus gets millions and millions of users, right? And if you are present there, you are getting a free branding activity, because that is also, you see, people pay on Google to, put your search on the top, right? First. Second is, if you look at some of our, or most, I think most of the companies will be doing some algorithm that we want to put more visibility to the bus operator whose services are higher. That means in free, if your NPS or services are good, in a top search result, and the OTAs are, you know, bringing traffic, and you have opportunity to showcase your brand for free. Now, coming to owning the customer, right? You need to look at that when someone bought a bus, eventually that person is not traveling in redBus, that person is traveling in your bus. And you have all the opportunity to, you know, acquire that customer with your best-in-class services.
Yeah. Okay, but it's the platform who's referring the client to this or that operator, right? Sebastian, did you want to add something?
And I just wanted to say, like, we're addressing it in two ways. I think our thesis is that the most important booking channel will be your direct channel, for sure. And that's how we are helping bus companies with Reservamos as to really have control of all their supply and all their distribution channels in one place. And then how I see the OTA, I see the OTA as attracting different customer segments. And that's the value of participating in channels such as redBus, such as CheckMyBus, such as Reservamos. In our case, why do we control the transaction? And it's pretty much because we believe that once you have the customer within your funnel, it is better to lock that customer, keep that transaction, gain that customer for our bus partner that's participating, and just not having the risk of losing that customer in the whole process. But I think there's multiple models, and everyone here plays a part. It goes back to all the point of Johannes, that we need to give the industry more visibility for it to grow.
I understand. Thank you so much. I saw the message from Hannes. One last question, Marko. You have some experience, quite some experience in aviation as well. What are the most important lessons that bus and coach operators can learn from aviation in this sector?
I think there are a couple. So I think one, direct versus indirect channels, you know, I think it's more the question of gatekeepers. You know, do you have gatekeepers that commoditize you? If you have, you're in trouble. If not, then indirect channel can be quite a good strategy. The other thing where airlines are really, really strong, and I think they have a 5-10 year advantage versus other transportation industry, is ancillary revenue. So airlines were really, really fast because they were forced to actually find profits and new significant revenues by selling other things associated to the trip. We are talking first, of course, about the baggage, meals, and so forth, but later on, this went into everything, you know, the museum, the restaurant, you name it, you know. Yep. And they really, some of the players, and actually we were very much involved in this, managed to digitalize this properly. And there are now new standards, you know, how you actually package the plane ticket together with a bunch of ancillaries. And you will see that the leading airlines are making more profit now from this than from the ticket itself.
I see. What you're saying, Marko, concluding, do you see multimodal platforms as redBus, as Reservamos, as CheckMyBus? Johannes and Distribution is more on the technical side, but do you see multimodal platforms coming where you can buy your flight ticket, have an immediate bus to the city you want to be, and a last mile solution via Uber, via taxi, I don't know what, to the door you want to get? Do you see this coming?
Absolutely. So this will happen. And the thing that I can tell you is it will be a lot of different business models. It will be a lot of channels. The bus operators who will be better prepared to dynamically switch on and off these different channels, these are the bus operators that will be winning.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Don't run. We need your advice after the second keynote, because we heard your opinions on how to operate right now, how to prepare for the relaunch of the sector. Second part, smaller in time, is how are we going to pay for this? I hear everybody say, in this crisis, we have quite some time, but we do not have the money, or we don't want to risk the money. So this is it. We come to Bruno Pelars from Deloitte, partner of the Busworld Academy. But before I give you the floor, Bruno, because you're going to talk on scenario planning, which means there's different scenarios when this crisis will be finished and so on. I would like the opinion of all attendees here, asking when will bus services be running again at an approximately same level as pre-COVID? Right? Let's put the barrier at let's say over 80% of January 2020. Will we get this 80% back in January or February? When do you think our bus services will come to a normal level again? We have participants from all over the world, quite some delegations from Latin America, quite some delegations from India and every region in between. I think 5 more seconds can do for this poll. Thank you for your opinion. Hannes, can you show us? I can tell you in this time that yes, this is quite similar. We asked the same question to the Belgian bus and coach operators, and there the response was quite similar to this one. Everybody thought that only after the summer of 2021 we would come to normal levels again. And I see that this international panel is actually saying the same. Thank you so much. This was the perfect introduction, I think, for you, Bruno, from Deloitte. How can scenario planning be an added value in this crisis for bus and coach operators? Thank you for joining us, by the way.
Thank you, Jan, for giving me the floor. It was at least a very interesting discussion that the key for the change or the post-COVID period is for a lot in digitalization, but nevertheless, we, as the poll has shown as well, we don't know when will we back to normal positions, and therefore scenario planning could be of a help in order to plan, to think upfront a bit on different possible scenarios. Will it be indeed summer 21? Will it be later? Does it might be the beginning of 2022? So all these unknowns or the ones that are disturbing a bit our restart and the way that we want to restart. So just as a brief introduction, if we can take the next slide. So indeed, I'm working for Deloitte. For those who might not know Deloitte, Deloitte is an international service providing firm for professional services towards all type of companies, being from the little scale-ups to the large international companies. And I'm working within Belgium mainly on strategy, on long-term planning, and especially in those uncertain times, a lot of people are questioning, is my business model still feasible for the future? Will the business that I have run for the last 30 years, will it still be a place for that business, taking into account everything that happened? So that's a bit the type of projects that I'm guiding and assisting and advising upon. And it's a bit based on that experiences that I want to share a view a bit on what is scenario planning and why might scenario planning be feasible for you. If we look the way a bit in the bus world, and not only in the bus world, but just in general also the way that we transport, we've discussed a lot in the panel about the digital impact and how digital platforms might help you in changing and shifting and especially in thriving towards the future. But also I think there are a lot of other aspects that we need to take into account that will have an impact on our sector as well. Being it the economic, the way of sharing economy, sharing cars, and the way that we are looking into that one. Just also the societal lifestyle, the technology we have discussed. We touched briefly upon the ecological part as well. So I think there are different trends that having an impact on the way that we will move towards the future and that we will transport. Look into the electrification of vehicles, having the connected cars, which gives lots of opportunities as well. Autonomous driving, not that far, I think, in the bus sector so far, but at least a lot of experiences and tests are being done within the car industry. The vehicle sharing, as we discussed, and also the digitalization and the way that we grab a cab is not longer the way that we have done it in the past. We do not longer call one, but in a lot of cases, we use digital platforms to look for the best solution on how we could transport. So for sure, all these trends have an impact and will, some of them, as we have discussed, we will accelerate a lot due to COVID. But okay, nevertheless, there will be a business for the buses, but we need to plan it. If we go to the next slide, we've done an international study as well on the impact of mobility in general. And one of the questions was also the impact on public transport. Over the next 3 months, do you plan to limit the use of public transport? And there we see an overall and global sentiment. If we compare it with previous studies, we see a gigantic drop over everywhere of people that are really looking in different ways to move from one place to another, to get confidence again in the buses and in public transport. So there will be another way that we need to position ourselves and to make sure that we gain confidence again in the industry, and that we gain confidence in the way that we will move from A to B, and that this has an impact, and that we need to see how we can position ourselves. Digital will of course help to increase the convenience and common transport, to make it again popular, but nevertheless we will need to think about the future, and that's where scenario planning comes into play. If we go to the next slide, please. On scenario planning, the context a bit, the next one as well. Thank you. So we all have taken the response measures. We have taken measures to ensure the continuity of our business. We've done some temporary employment, we've some discontinuation perhaps of contracts, some flexible working, making sure that we preserve the working capital and cash needs. So having a good actions or measures that we have taken in order to guarantee the continuity of our business. But good, after this period, of course, and hopefully and for sure, this too shall pass, this period. I mean, there will be a time for recovery and hopefully also to thrive, to accelerate within the future. So if we look into the tomorrow business, how will we restart? What are the investments that we need to take? And what are at least the investments that we need to take to make sure that we also can accelerate, that we can drive towards the future? That's an important one as well. So there will be, if we just contain our business and do not innovate and change, I think that was the key message that I remembered from the panel discussion as well. We need to innovate, we need to digitize, we need to rethink some of our aspects in how we do our business. There might be a good time today as well to find a good balance and see what we could do already today to make sure that when we restart, that we are ready for it. So that we take some lessons learned, that we evaluate our business model and see how we could drive towards the future. If you go to the next one, the basics of scenario planning is finding a good balance between the short-term measures that you need to take in order to guarantee the continuity, but also thinking on the longer term. I mean, there will be a business also for you after this crisis. So we need to perhaps pre-invest, invest, and make smart choices also today. With the limited budgets that we have, we need to already invest in our business or for the new normal. And scenario planning is all of finding that balance between short-term measures and having also a view on the long term, and at least take some crucial investments. Because the biggest unknown, as we have seen in the poll as well, is that we do not know how long it will take. What we will for sure know, that one day it will be over, but we don't know the period. And that's the biggest unknown that we need to plan, that we need to think through. Talking about scenario planning, it's a kind of an exercise that needs you think through and to see what is possible, what is feasible, and making sure that you have an alignment, that you are prepared, that you have your act together. Once you can restart, that you're already in a good shape. And that's all what scenario planning is about. If we go to the next slide, the scenario planning, of course, will depend a lot on certain dimensions. The three dimensions that I believe are the crucial ones are, first of all, the type of industry. I think the panelists, a lot of them are really more in a digital industry linked to the sector, but some of them might also be really in the coaching business, driving the coaches, driving around everywhere on the globe. So depending on your industry, some of the industries might be hit more severely than others, and that might create certain opportunities. So the exposure will a first dimension that you need to take into account when you think of scenario planning. The second one is also the robustness of your business. Are you a new, just emerging company, or you have a long generation and have already a certain financial position that you have gained over the generations of your business will have an impact as well. The robustness will define more or less what is the potentials, the freedom that you have within every scenario. And third of all is also the adaptability. How easy is it to do something else with the assets that you have today? How easy can you shift it? Do you have a really big company that you need to shift very slowly, like a big tanker, or a more agile company? So these three parameters will really have an impact on the scenarios itself and what might make sense for you. And in every scenario planning, what we see to have a sustainable recovery, to restart your business, first of all, you need to refine again, how will we gain revenue? How will we rebuild a certain sales? Will that be possible in our current business or the business that we have done before? Or do we need to look for new sales channels? I think we've discussed in the panel about potential sales channels, the digital channel that can help you in order to restore a certain sales. That will be the first priority to find back where can we find a certain revenue coming in. The second aspect of the scenario planning that you need to think of is really, how do we control the cost? How do we make sure that there is a close relationship on the speed that we expect that revenue might come back and the speed that we can accept, again, certain costs to increase. So there will need to be a good balance again on how do we expect that the sales can grow and also controlling the costs. And all that will be linked on a good cash planning and a financing position. The combination of these three are the three building blocks of a scenario plan. If we go to the next slide, there we have a bit of the approach. And I think if we go to the next one, first of all, it's where do we have the biggest disturbance in the business model? Is it about the clients that are not coming back, or is really the business disturbed due to lockdowns that there is no traffic possible? Is it mainly due to the link? If we are doing more traffic from cities towards the airports, we see a huge impact on airports as well. So where is the biggest disturbance in our value chain? That will be the crucial part where we need to think, is that disturbance temporary, or is this really a structural change in the way that we live, that we operate, that we work? So having a good understanding of the disturbance, are we feeling that this is of more temporary nature, or is it much more structural? And do we need to rethink our business model and see what is possible? So that's the first one, is really thinking of the value chain. The second one, if we go back to the new normal, how do we need to adjust the business model? We need to embrace digital. I think that was a bit one of the main sentences that I heard in the panel discussion, but nevertheless, how will we embrace it? What will be, how will it fit in our current business model? So really thinking of what are the different steps of getting back to the new normal, the impact on the business model, and also the way that we finance our business. How can we fund the restart? And then third of all, in scenario planning, there are different scenarios. You will have the worst case, the normal case, the best case. But the biggest difficulty is, when do you switch from one scenario to another? When do you feel that the normal case will not be the normal one, that your timing will take much longer than you have expected, that you need to go more into the worst one? So you need to define certain parameters when you will switch towards the next scenario. Will it be better or will it be worse? And that's a bit a kind of a journey that you need to take in order to go through. It's actually thinking upfront on different potential scenarios based on the timing, which is the biggest unknown so far. We have included on the next slide a small potential example. I mean, it's very illustrative, but what are the different aspects that you need to think of when building scenarios? It's always a link between the strategic parts on what will happen on the market, the business model, linked to the financial parts. It's a combination of both that needs to be included. On the left-hand side of the slide, it's good to articulate the hypothesis, because those are a bit the drivers that will trigger you to change from one scenario to another one. So clearly define the hypothesis of the disturbances that you have in your value chain. Will it be the suppliers? Will it be more on the capacity, on the offering, on your channel? Is it linked to the customer? So clearly describe the hypothesis for your best scenario, for your best case, for your normal case, for the worst case, and have then linked to that a clear action plan. If that's the best case, how will we rebuild the sales? Where will the sales come from? How will we make sure that we get our cash flow again coming in? And linked to that, based on the sales that we see or the revenue that will come in, I mean, we need to control the cost. In our example, we've said, okay, we will rebuild some of our sales channels. Some sales operational staff will be back in business. We will promote digital, will be a bit the way that we try to increase again our revenue. And linked to that, if we see a certain speed of those activities, we need to make sure that we control the costs at the end as well. That we say, perhaps let's work again at 50% of our capacity, see how it goes, and after that, based on the experiences, further increase it. So there will be always a link between the sales and control and costing and argument. And then next to that, yeah, it needs to be paid. There needs to be a certain buffer in our cash. So we need to have an efficient management on the working capital. How could we optimize the working cash capital? Is there any way that we can work on the contract to cash cycle, on the commercial finance contracts? Could you have anything to make sure that our cash flow has a certain efficiency and optimization? And if we do not have sufficient cash flow, we need to have a look into what are the ways that we can further fund it and structure our funding. Will it be a real estate that we can do a sale and lease back? Will it be an additional banking financing? I mean, there will be a certain buffer. So in that way, the first priority will always be looking into how can we rebuild the revenue in the best case, worst case, the normal case, and how will the rest sequentially follow? What will be the impact then on the costs, on our cash management, and on the way that we are currently funded and financed? I'm not sure how I'm doing regarding the time, but I see I need to round it up. So yes, we are getting to an end as well. So on the next slide, I'm sure that after a crisis, it will not only be the strongest and the biggest that will survive, but at least the ones that is most responsive to the change and the most agility will be important. The scenario planning will help in the journey of thinking through, but nevertheless, you will need to have a certain agility as well to react to uncertainties, and that will be hopefully help you in driving and thriving and accelerating towards competitors in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruno. In the poll, we have seen the different possible scenarios. We saw that most people only saw the recovery of the sector during or after the summer. So these are scenarios that we have to keep in mind. That gives the companies quite some time to think about their digitalization, to choose their partners, or to, if necessary, to consolidate. Very concrete questions. Let me start with Sebastian. If people, a coach operator, I'm talking here, if they want to start working with Reservamos, what does it cost them? What will be the investment? What will be the operational cost?
We have a model that is pay per transaction. So the process of working with our business model in Reservamos SaaS is very simple. That again is for our adopting our e-commerce platform and revenue management solution. Takes anywhere between 2 weeks to 3 months, depending on the infrastructure of each bus company. But we're operating with that model already like throughout LATAM. And then in the OTA, we're really focused on the Mexican market. So that's more relevant for any Mexican bus operator right now.
I see. Thank you. Same question to you, Sanjeeb. In redBus, I'm a coach operator. What will it cost me to get connected to redBus?
So the redBus software has been free, but the one thing is that has never been focus of redBus, just as a redBus entity. But recently we acquired 2 years back largest GDS player, which is Bitlasoft. So how they work is like what Sebastian said. It's almost same. It's like paper transaction. So it's free. You can say in that terms that it is. I think that's the most of the SaaS players does that. It's while you use, you pay.
No cure, no pay. That's it.
Yeah. So yeah. It's like when you transact, you let's say it might be some percentage. It might be even 0.1, 0.5. It depends on the companies.
Marc, coming to you. I have bus lines from Buenos Aires to Santiago. I want to get my line seen via CheckMyBus. How does it work?
That's pretty simple. It depends on your technical capabilities. So if you have an API, we integrate this. If you don't have an API, we can directly connect to website. That is basically, that work is on our side. So that's basically no work for you. Then the integration happens. If you don't have tracking, we can also provide you solutions for that. So that is also for free. And then when you're on CheckMyBus and customers from all over the world see your offers and basically come to your webpage and a transaction is happening, then you pay a certain small part of the ticket as a commission.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, Marc, you were referring to the technical side. That makes me come to Johannes. I have nothing. I have my own website and I want to link to a platform, either CheckMyBus, redBus, or Reservamos. What can you do for me to facilitate this link, and what will be the investment I have to make?
There is no like with the others here, right? There is no upfront investment. We also only work success-based, so transaction-based. So whenever we bring additional clients, facilitate a booking, bring you revenue, we take a small share of that. Yeah. When it comes to the technical feasibility, I think we are pretty much used to almost anything. So no matter if you are on a software as a service, IMS, right, which has the performant API, if you have your own system, if you are really managing operations on an Excel sheet, it doesn't really matter, right? We are pretty flexible in consuming all of that. So either send us your API documentation or your fax with your schedules, it doesn't really matter. We're happy to consume that, yeah, and work on a success-based model.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Inge, I want my offer on Busfan. You already told us that it will not cost me anything, and there's more. It's even collaborators of Busfan that will put my offer on the Busfan website.
Yes, indeed.
That seems medieval to me. How can we make this link more automated?
Well, I think it's still very difficult because linking to the databases and the websites of the operators is just not always feasible. And as a federation, you must make sure that everybody is there. And even as a platform, it's the best way that everything is there, that the offer is as big as possible. So what we will do in the future is give them their own login so they can kind of manage their own offers on the Busfan website. But making it all automated, that will probably be for, yeah, I don't know when. I think somehow this is also necessary because it's absolutely true that there is a problem of mindset, and it's not easy to change this. Operators have to experience first that it brings more business before they believe it somehow. I think it has to do with the type of companies, especially in Belgium, I don't know in the rest of the world, but they're mainly family businesses. They're used to doing their business as usual. It always worked. And it's very difficult for them to change this. So we as a federation, we really saw it was necessary to just take their hands and do it for them.
Work on the mindset.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do, of course. Educate them, hitting the same nail, like we say in Dutch. Yes.
Yep. Let me take it one step further. I'm a coach operator. I'm going to work with one of the platforms or with all of the platforms. I'm providing my data to them. Marko, that must be worth something. If I provide my data to that, what are they going to pay to me for that?
Yeah, I mean, surely there are such business models, but you need to be realistic. Not all data has value. It must be actionable data at the right time and so forth. So there is no free lunch. So we work across many industries. We go to a car maker, says, "Hey, I have a ton of data." Great, it's operational data. It's worth nothing. So I think you need to build your own foundations, and then you can start playing this kind of game. So I think this is very important, and this is basically also what our company is doing. So we do a little bit technology consulting and then software engineering, and we help create strategies that actually reduce the fixed cost in this physical world and enable these digital business strategies. And I think this is the way to go. So.
Thank you so much. I see that we're getting over our time. I'm going to conclude, Sanjeeb, if you don't mind, but I'm sure we'll all meet with other people at one of the Busworld events. I just want to give the last word to Bruno from Deloitte. Bruno, you heard the panel discussion. You heard what is going on in the sector. We also learned that there is hardly any important investment to be made. The operational costs are mostly on a no cure, no pay basis. What would be your advice to coach operators in, let's say, the 3 to 4 months of low activity that we have ahead?
At least take the opportunity to invest towards the future. I think indeed there is no cure, no pay, but there is no. The best thing is at least to try to innovate and at least to try some things to make sure that you can restart in a different way than you have stopped the business.
Thank you so much. I'm going to thank everybody here for the most interesting keynotes. Bruno, Marc, thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists. I'm quite sure that digitalization will be a topic in every upcoming Busworld Foundation or Busworld Academy event. We have 6 of them scheduled next year. This year will not be possible. Next year we have 6 events from the Americas to Southeast Asia and every region in between. So I'm sure we can meet there again. Allow me, concluding this session of webinars, to give some special thanks to Marc, Hofmann, and to CheckMyBus for this excellent partnership. I look forward to see you all again. By these last words, whatever question you have been sending us or whatever remark you have been making, you will get a reply if the reply was not provided during this webinar. Thank you so much to everybody. See you all again soon. Bye.